And good morning, everybody. I am Micro, obviously Outdoorsman. Welcome to First Light Talk number 17. Today's topic is why deer drives are the best, what they accomplish, and tips to be more effective when doing deer drives. But starting off today with today's news article. And it is like bear week, bear month. It's just bear time. I don't know why. From Jersey to Florida and all in between, there have just been bear attacks all across the board. So today's article, Daytona Beach man, which is Florida, battles black bears to protect his Dachshunds. That's basically like a wiener dog, a tiny dog. So a Daytona man battles a black bear to protect his little wiener dog. All right, on Wednesday around 7:30 p.m., a bear came barging through the family screen door looking for a little dinner. All right, for the people watching and listening on an audio platform, the videos captured by a Ring camera. I'm going to show it on YouTube if you guys want to head over there and actually watch it, or just Google the incident. Again, Daytona Beach man battles bear to protect his little dog. And this bear just came barging through his screen door. He's just standing there in like his little sunroom, his screened in porch, and for some reason his door is open, but this bear just comes barging through. This bear lunges for his dog, and this man, with absolute balls of steel, dives at the bear to save his little wiener dog. All right, the man got multiple claw and puncture wounds, but he was able to discourage the bear and scare him off. And wildlife officials said they recorded 15 incidents of people being moderately to seriously injured by bears in more than 50 years in Florida. But this was the second bear incident within a week in Florida. The first attack involved a woman who said a black bear tackled her, quote unquote, tackled her while she was walking her dog. If you guys don't know by now, bears can be vicious animals when they are hungry. They will do anything for food, whether they are barging through a fence to grab a rooster or a chicken because they're hungry, any livestock, it's just over with. When it's wintertime and these bears are tight on food, they will do anything, and that would even include charging someone to grab their little tiny dog. And again, if your dog is smaller than a cat, in my opinion, your dog is a cat. And you just got to watch with bears, because if you are in bear country, and even Florida, North Florida is bear country, they will just come up and just grab a dog, yoink a dog with no second guessing, and it's over for that dog. All it takes is one swat and that dog is mortally injured. I mean, even big dogs could be in trouble. I mean, bears are not weak animals, and it doesn't take much for them just to swat something and grab something by their neck and just drag them away in the woods, and that's it for that dog. And even with little children, if they really wanted to, they could just grab a kid and just drag it in the woods if they're hungry. So please watch out. It's been bear week. These bears are active, and just do what you need to do. Carry a sidearm, carry bear mace. If you live anywhere around bears, please be careful. They have been more active, and there has been so many nuisance bear reports from all across the country lately. Just stay safe, and I want to give props to this man with absolute balls of steel for just not even second guessing. This bear comes through his screen door and goes for one of his dogs, and he just throws himself at the bear and pushes him out the door. It's absolutely insane video to watch. On to today's topic. Why deer drives are the best, what they accomplish, tips to be more effective when doing a deer drive. All right, whether you call them pushes, drives, or walks, they are all doing the same thing. Someone making an animal go the way you want them to, normally to shooters. But if you're just doing some scouting, whether it be during the summer and you just want to see what deer are in the woods, you can set people up with no weapons just to see what deer come through. Just push them lightly. Just have them walking on through the woods just to get some intel instead of setting up a whole bunch of cameras and maybe getting them on camera. But you can do deer drives or bear drives or anything with people. You can do them with dogs. You can do them with just a wall of people. There's plenty of ways to do a deer drive. You just have to make sure it's legal in your state. I know a lot of states you can't drive deer with dogs, so just make sure it's legal. Most of the deer drives I have done have just been like one-on-one or one-on-two bow drives. All right, we don't have a giant hunting party every time we go out. It's mainly just like me and Rob, or me and Tyler, or me and Three Finger Joe. All right, I grew up doing deer drives, and they can be very effective, and they can be very safe. All right, a lot of people say I don't do deer drives because it puts someone at risk because you're shooting towards them. That's not the case at all. Do them properly, do them effectively, and you will have no issue going through the woods doing a safe deer drive. And they are one of the most effective things at certain times of years, and I just absolutely love them. So deer drives accomplish multiple things. You're maximizing your opportunities in a shorter amount of time. You can do like 30 deer drives some days if they're shorter deer drives, and in a given day I can almost guarantee you that you will see way more deer than just sitting a stand. I love it when I go on like Facebook groups and they're like, wow, it's slow in zone 3 and I've been sitting all day, and I go on there, I'm like, god damn, Rob, we saw like 82 deer today. What are these guys on? But a lot of times we do deer drives, and there will be like 30 deer coming through one drive, and it's just absolutely mayhem. And I live for deer interactions. I love interacting with deer. If I could see 30 deer in a given day trying to harvest one of them, and deer drive's the way to do it, and I could get them within a proper shooting range to where I can make a ethical shot, then I will do that. So if the deer drive is done correctly and effectively, then you are seeing almost every deer in that piece of woods. So depending on if you have like 5 drivers versus 2 sitters, and they're pushing every deer out, but it's maximizing the 2 sitters' opportunities, then that's the way to do it. If there's any exit route that these deer can just slip out of and not come through on the drive, then you need to block that off. But if you have to do one-on-one drives, then there are certain ways to be more effective. So I do a lot of one-on-one bow drives, just me and Rob, and we have a lot of deer cut out the side or just come through where another sitter should have been. I guarantee you, if we always did like 3-on-3 drives, we'd have so many more deer harvested than what we do now, but we gotta just get it done with how we do it. So if it takes 10 drives to get a perfect drive to where the deer will come through 20-15 yards to the sitter and they can get a good shot, then that's just what it's going to take. And you know what? Some people sit all season, barely see any deer, and they finally get a shot at like a doe. When we see deer like every time we do deer drives, and it's just a matter of if we're doing doe drives, then it's just going to be game on, because it's never an issue doing doe drives. We could always get a bunch of does down if we want to get does down. And then if we're buck hunting after we get our does down, then we just got to wait for the right buck. And a lot of times we shoot smaller than anticipated, because as soon as them deer are coming through the drive, all you see is rack, and you stop focusing on it, and you're like, okay, time to shoot. And then you shoot, and it's got a little bit of ground shrinkage because it was just so quick, and it's like, I thought he was bigger. But either way, they eat the same, and it's just about the experience. If they come on through and it's perfect, then I don't care how big it is. All right. So instead of sitting your morning stand and then just leaving the woods to get lunch and wait for your afternoon sit, be proactive and do some deer drives. There are many ways to do a drive, and whether it's 1-on-1 or 10-on-10 gun drives, they can be plenty safe and more than effective if they're done right. All right. Blocks or forced routes or any way that they have to come through the drive, if you can set it up so where they have to come out if they're in that piece of woods, then you want to set it up that way. So when I say blocks or forced routes, if you have a wall, a fence, funnels, a lake, a building, anyway, so like if they want to run left, they just can't. So if there's a wall there, they can't go through that wall. If there's a fence and there's a hole in the fence, try and block up that hole in the fence, or put a shooter on the other side of that hole in the fence if they always come through that hole. Right? If there's a lake, they're not going through that lake most of the times. There's a building, they can't get through that building. So you just want to set it up to where they have to come through this route. You're trying to create a funnel in any way possible. And if there's anything like a wall, a fence, a lake, whatever it is, if they can't go through that way, or if they're forced to come through the drive, then your drives are just done. It's if they're in that drive, they're coming through, and it's just a matter of the shooter making the shot at that point. That's why we can be very effective on our bow drives. So depending on what property we're on, what permission we got, we'll set up on one side of the property. And if there's a very long fence running through the whole property and there's no holes in it, or if there is a hole in it, we try and put a shooter on the other side of that hole to where if they come through, if they want to go through, then we can just set someone up there, and then that's another exit route that's blocked. So we set it up on the one side, we push the deer to where they funnel along the fence, and you're just putting the shooters where it's most anticipated for a deer to come out of. There's a lot of times where it's like, yo, Rob, do you want to choose down the hill or up the hill? They can go one of two ways. But if they go down the hill, we can swoop them out and around because they're not going to cross them two roads. So we're just going to swoop them out and around if they go down. But if they go up, then they're going to cut out into the rest of the woods to where we have no chance of getting them and doing an actual good deer drive. So sit up top, and if they come through up top, cool, you get a shot at them. Hopefully you make a good shot. If they run down low, then we could just loop that piece out, and you're just doing two drives in one at that point. We have a lot of drives like that. So we have you have your driver and your sitter. So the driver is the one that's pushing deer. Your sitter is the one that's either trying to gain intelligence on what deer come through, or the shooter, and they're trying to harvest the animal. But you can also utilize blockers, and I've used scarecrows as blockers. I've used other people as blockers. I've used a car as blockers before, depending what property you're on and how you can get away with it without spooking the deer out of the drive. Try it that way. So we have a drive to where we can do it with probably 1, 2, 3, 4 people. And I mean, I could get the deer going one way, no problem. But I have this drive so perfect to where if I come down into the woods and I push them all the way across the woods, if they see me in this drive, they just run the other way. And they will run out to the point, and normally they'll cross a couple roads and just be gone. So I'll go down in there. They run through the woods trying to get out, like a couple 100 yards away. And I put my buddy as a blocker. I don't put a shooter there, but I put a blocker there because a couple 100 yards away, it's probably like 800 yards. It's a pretty far drive. And it's like 800 yards away. I'll put a blocker out on the point because it's just a little opening to where, well, it's not a little opening, but it funnels into a point. They could cut out anywhere, but they always seem to come through this point. They want to stay in the woods, and then they just hop out and be in the woods as much time as possible. So I'll put a blocker over there because there's actually a building over there and you can't put a shooter there. So push all the deer down, have a blocker there. And then all they have to do is just scare the deer back into the drive because I'll hug one side of the woods. He blocks them and pushes them back into the drive. So if I'm hugging the right side and I push them out and they run through and the blocker pushes them back, they're going to run the left side back. And when they're running the left side back, there's a hill on the left side and a pond on the right side. So where do you put the shooter? Right in the middle. And I've had times on this drive to where like 30, 40 deer, 50 deer come out sometimes. And this is no exaggeration. 50 deer come through the drive. And it's just absolute like stampede action. No one knows what to shoot at. But I've had a lot of big bucks get harvested on this drive alone. I've had a lot of does harvested on this drive alone. And then another one of our best drives is there's a big wall and a fence about 20 yards apart. So we'll drop someone off way down low, and the fence isn't running the whole way. It's running about maybe the last portion of it. So if you can push the deer from the big woods into that little fence and wall spot and they're coming through, then they're coming through, no questions asked. It's not like, okay, they might come through, they might give me a shot. If they're in there and they come through the fence and the wall, you are seeing them and you got to get a quick shot on them. And luckily with this spot, there's a little like 2-foot hump that they always stop on. You don't even have to stop the deer. They're coming through no matter how quick they are. Normally they will just slow up, stop on the hump, gain themselves, look around the woods, and then when they're stopping on their own, the shooter's only like 10 yards away and they're whacking that deer. So it's great. All right, you want to set up the sitters far enough so the deer don't spook backwards into the drives. So if you're setting the sitter, if it's a small piece of woods and you're trying to get close as possible to the deer, the sitters, so all they have to do, the pushers, is just bump the deer towards the sitters. If the sitters end up bumping the deer as they're setting up back into the drive. A lot of times them deer will not come through. They will do anything in their willpower to just run right past the pushers and just out of the drive, or just run left and run right. They just won't come through. So you just want to be careful setting up the sitters. Set them far enough back so they don't spook the deer. Leave them be. So the only way they get jumped and pushed is by the pushers, and they're going the way you want to, and that's towards the shooters. All right. If you're pushing, walk at the deer slow so they come through slow for the sitters, unless they won't and you have to run at them. I've had so many times where I do drives in the same spots like multiple times in the same week, and the deer have seen me multiple times and they don't want to come through. They will run right back at me as the pusher and run out of the drive. And I've had to run like full sprint Usain Bolt, like just out. And a lot of times I'll just come up, I'll push them, and they're running right. And I need them to run straight away from me, and they're running right. So what do I have to do? I have to put my running shoes on and just take off running. I have done like 300-yard dashes with my muck boots on, jumping over creeks, jumping over trees, trying to get deer to go the right way. And a lot of times I can do that, but there have been a few times, it's probably like a 70% success rate, to where if they're running out of the drive and I just take off sprinting to try and cut them off and turn them, it's like a 70% success rate. I've had times where I've ran at them, I got within like 3 yards of them, and I mean close, to where I could basically just jump on them and tackle them, and they're just running out of the drive. They don't want to turn around because for whatever reason, whether they're spooked or they just don't want to, they just don't want to go. So if you see deer, if you're walking through and the deer are bedded in the drive or just feeding in the drive and they're basically in a perfect position, if you walk up on them, don't just start running at them. Don't just start like walking quick right at them. What I like to do as a pusher is just like mill around, go slow, and I just kind of walk back and forth, because you're supposed to do like a constant zigzag back and forth pattern through the woods when you're pushing. That way you're maximizing everything. A lot of times the big bucks won't just take off running when they see you. They'll just hunker down in a thick bush, and unless you step on them, they're not running. So a lot of times when I'm walking through, I'm throwing rocks, I'm throwing twigs into the thicker stuff, into the cattails, into the thick bedding, just so, especially if it's thick thorns and I don't want to walk through that and get all cut up, I'll just throw rocks in there, I'll clap, and I'll walk on through just to get the deer to go the other way, so I don't have to walk in there and get all bloodied up. But a lot of times, even with the rocks and sticks, they don't want to get up unless they get hit with the rock or stick. So, and that's all by chance. You don't see them in that thick cover. You're just hoping that the stick and the rock will spook them out of there. So a lot of times I'll just end up walking right through that thick cover because I know they're probably in there. And I'm just zigzagging back and forth. And when I see deer, I just keep doing it. Maybe I even slow my pace down, so that way I could just barely push the deer towards them, because the slower they come to the sitters, the less spooky they'll be, and it's going to be easier for this shooter to get a shot. So if they're just trotting on in, like barely, not even running, barely even like speed walking, they're just coming on through, and it's like they're in a line, and all the shooter has to do is draw their bow without being seen by the deer, and it's game time, because they're coming through slow, and all they have to do is just stop them with a little meh, and it's game time. All right, and guys, if you guys are going to be shooters on deer drives, practice, please, and stop the deer. Don't shoot at a running deer. It's very, very low chances of you getting the shot. All right, it has happened a lot of times, and a lot of times you can't help yourself with just shooting at a running deer or a trotting deer. So practice. And if you are gonna shoot at a moving deer, practice with it. Set up a target on the back of your quad and just make that shot 1,000,000 times. Because if you can make a shot on that, then you can become effective in almost anything. So if you have practiced at like moving targets with the bow, then go for it. If you think that you're ethical, then go for it. But please practice, and 99.9% of the time, if the deer's coming through as a shooter with a bow, because I do a lot of bow drives, but with the gun it's probably easier. You could just let it rip, let a shell loose, and they're probably just going down. But with the bow, you really have to stop them. And with the bow, please, oh please, when you are sitting up. So if you're setting up at your spot and you're waiting to tell the pusher to go, like before you tell them that you're ready, sit in your spot, have a rangefinder, and just range all the trees around you. Know how far you're effective to. So if your effective yardage is 40 yards, range the 40-yard trees all around you. And then you just go, okay, 40, 40, 40, 40. And then range everything around you. Okay, so that tree's 32. If they're there, I could use my second pin. And then anywhere from that tree and in, it's my first pin. And if they're on top of me, I just kind of just hold it right on their body. But if they're way out there, that's 40 yards. So I do that a lot of times. That way when the deer is coming in, I don't have to fumble around with my rangefinder. I know that tree's 42, this tree's 33, and this tree right here is 18. So that's just how you gotta set it up in your head, and you have to stay conscious of that as the deer are coming in. That way they're coming in, you draw back, you go, okay, that tree's 27 yards. They look like they're 2 yards behind that. Let me use my second pin. You let it rip. So just range find everything before you shoot. All right, don't fumble with the rangefinder as they're coming in. As the deer's at 27 yards looking over their shoulder at the pusher, and then they end up seeing you as the sitter because they're already on high alert, then that drive's over with. Right? Range find everything before the drive even starts. And just practice. When they're coming through, if they're trotting, come to full draw. When you're at full draw and they're coming through at like 18 yards, trotting, just go, rah, rah, stop them, or just say whatever you need to say. And when they stop, settle your pin and let it rip. It's going to be quick. It's going to be like a 1 second process. They're going to be coming in, stop quick, let it rip, and then they're gone. It's a quick thing. Bow drives are quick, deer drives are quick, and they can be one of the most fun times. Rob has often said it's like a stampede in the woods, and he doesn't know which one to shoot because they're running him over. It's like a lot of the times the issue is trying to figure out where to put the sitter, because it's like, okay, do I want to be here by this tree or down there by them down trees? Where am I going to be covered? And a lot of times we do pick the wrong spot to where the shot's going to be too far, to where if we sit down below and they run up top, it's going to be like a 50-yard shot. And if we sit up top and they go around the down trees on the bottom, then it's just over with, the drive's done. But more often than not, I'd say probably 70-30, 60-40 of a success rate of choosing where to sit. And if you do these drives long enough or multiple times, then you kind of know where the deer are going to go, so your success rate goes up. But a lot of times you're sitting there and the deer are going to basically have a straight beeline towards your tree. So if you know exactly where they're going to go, you want to be just off of that trail that you know they're going to come through on. Sit 20 yards to the left of that trail, you know, and that way you have a 20-yard shot broadside, not a straight on shot. But a lot of times we have drives to where they're just coming right at us, and you got to stop them and make a shot. And I mean, when I say there, I'm talking like 30 deer, and it's just a stampede. It's a lot of eyes. You have 30 deer, that's 60 eyes most of the time, and they're just coming through quick, and you just got to make a shot. All right, if you can scope out the woods beforehand, before you go into the woods, like if you can drive past it and you could kind of just wait to see if there's any deer movement, put your binos up, see if you see deer already in the drive. And if you can see the whole woods before you even do the drive and get in the woods, then scope it out. I mean, you might not see the deer that are bedded down, but if you guarantee see a like 10 pointer just standing there feeding in the middle of the drive perfectly, and you have plenty of time to just go set up your sitter and do a push, then that's one of the most effective times. It's a lot of times we go out there and we're like, Rob, we got 8 doe on the side hill, time to do a drive. And it's like, okay, let's go, let's set it up, game plan, they're going to be there. And a lot of times midday when the action is low and they're bedded down, a drive is the best thing you can do, because instead of just sitting in your stand all day, just because the deer are bedded in their beds all day, then get down and make the deer come to you. They're gonna be soaking up the sun until the afternoon sit. So get out of your stand, do a deer drive, push them out of their bed, and it's gonna be a great time. And I know a lot of people like to do walkie-talkies for deer drives, especially gun drives. And if you're doing gun drives, then walkie-talkies could be the best way to go. You don't have to fumble around with anything, and the walkie's just easy. The gun's easy. You can just shoot, and that's really it. But if you're doing bow drives, use headphones instead of walkie-talkies, because when they're coming in close, you have to make like a 20-yard shot a lot of the time. And if you got a walkie and you hear all that beeping coming on, they're going to be like, okay, Now I'm out of here. You got the headphones in, you just pop a little headphone in and you're waiting and you're like, okay, they're coming. And then you draw back and let it rip. There's no sound coming out of them headphones. And a lot of times when I'm doing a push, I will let the sitter know if there's deer coming through. I'll be like, okay, you got 3 does going left side on the other side of the creek. And they're so far away that all they have to do is hop on the other side of the creek and maybe change where they're sitting really quick. And it makes a successful drive just because I told them the deer are on the other side of the creek instead of this side of the creek. It's just little things like that. You just have to be very conscious of everything. And if you tell them like, hey, big buck, get ready, don't shoot any does, instead of coming through and they shot the first doe that they saw and here comes the big buck at the end of the drive coming on through and they don't have an arrow knocked. So just communication is key. If you guys could just say, okay, there's deer coming through, there's no deer coming through, nothing yet, get ready, don't shoot the does, there's a buck in there. Just communication is very key, and it can change a non-successful drive to a successful drive just by telling them that the deer are moving 50 yards uphill instead of going downhill. And that's really it. I mean, I have had a lot of success with deer drives. My father has had a lot of success. Three Finger Joe, Tyler, Rob. There's many people in my group that have just done very good with deer drives. It can change the whole route. And we have taken so many does on deer drives, doing deer drives in New Jersey where there's unlimited does tags and you can just go out there and just go insane hammer on them. Then it's just so fun. I mean, we don't really take advantage of the unlimited tag part, but we definitely do shoot some does in our group and it's fun. I mean, I have a bunch of deer on the wall that have been taken with deer drives, and it's just super fun and it's a very good memory. And a lot of times if you could just use a GoPro, put it on your bow and record that thing, especially when you know the deer just going to run you over and it's like a stampede, man, it is insane footage and I absolutely love it. Deer drives are one of my most favorite things to do. All right, rattling and sitting winter bow in early summer, and just when you have a deer patterned versus doing a deer drive, and sit in your stand where it's normally low action, or doing a deer drive to where it's high action, high paced, adrenaline pumping, make your shot count, everything's quick. All right, a lot of times I do prefer deer drives over just sitting in the woods, but each time has its time and place. But if you guys have not yet, if you guys are having a slow day this upcoming deer season or this deer season right now, try doing a deer drive, get some buddies together, try and keep it under like 5 people if you're doing bow drives in certain areas. Don't pick an absolute massive piece of woods and just decide to do a drive and expect it to work. Get more effective spots to where there's more funnel areas that you can just set up and do deer drives in. All right. Thank you guys for listening to First Light Talk number 17. I am Mike with Obviously Outdoorsmen. I hope you guys enjoyed this deer drive talk and this news article on all the bears. It's been bear month so far, so be careful if you guys live around bears. And if you guys have any questions about doing deer drives, comment or email me. Just let me know. I'm more than happy to talk about deer drives. And if you guys are only listening on audio platforms for the rest of this video, that whole thing I just talked about after the bear, there was a whole bunch of just deer drive action filled videos. So give that a check on YouTube if you guys have not. All right. Thank you guys. Enjoy your Sunday. I am Mike. Peace out. Enjoy your day.